Hello everybody, Brian here with Ready for Retail, and we are taking on pillar number 2, administration. Now please hold on, don't skip. This is very important. I know this is not the glorious, cool stuff you want to talk about, but we have to talk about it. Just a reminder, if you have not printed off the guide, go to getreadyforretail.com, print it off, and let's get started. Up first, let's talk about legal registration. Legal registration is a formal process of establishing your business as a recognized legal entity, such as an LLC, a corporation, or a sole proprietorship. It ensures that your company is legally compliant. So why does this matter? First and foremost, I think this is one of those things that everyone assumes that people know about, but probably don't know a lot about. Part of the legal setup of your entity is not only so you can do business with other entities like a retailer or a marketing company. It sets up your tax identification number. It establishes you, but it also gives you protection. This protection against if something were to happen with your business, it actually separates you from the business itself so that they can't come after you. So make sure that you understand all of the legal mumbo jumbo. We're going to get into something past this that I think is really important, but make sure that you understand the way that you're setting it up, how it protects you, how you will do business in the future. Another thing that it does is it allows you access to other things. So if you do need to get a bank loan to fulfill a shipment, if you do need to secure some other businesses that want to do business with you, you want to have a relationship with them or partnership with them, having that business entity is very important. You will need it to do business in retail. Another quick story is make sure that your brands or your identities or your names or your logos are also registered. I've actually had a situation where someone had a parent company, let's say it's Brian Odell Incorporated, and then I sold my Magic Brian pen, and everything was set up correctly for the organization itself. But when they found out that there was already a Brian's Pens that was being manufactured, they hit a pretty big roadblock. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. There's things like LegalZoom and online things that you can fill out yourself, fairly reasonable, or you can use legal counsel. You can get an attorney to fill all of this out. It's up to you from a comfort level, but I would always protect myself the most that I can. So make sure, and we're going to talk about something that's 2 subjects from now that I think is very important as well around the legal entity of this. But make sure that when you're set up, that you're always active, that you're paying whatever monthly or yearly dues that you might have, filing the proper paperwork. This is one of those things, and it actually happened to me once before, is that if you let one of those lapse, you're going to have an issue come down the road, and all of a sudden you find out that you might have been terminated or that your company is no longer able to do business. So make sure that 1, it is set up correctly, and number 2, that it is always in good standing. All right, so let's move on down the road. Our number 2 topic is business plan. What is a business plan? A business plan is a comprehensive document that outlines your company's vision, marketing strategy, your product roadmap, operation model, and financial plan. It serves as both an internal blueprint and an external validation tool that helps you navigate growth while signaling professionalism to your retailers, to your investors, and also to your strategic partners. This is one of the things that I think is overlooked a lot in the entrepreneurial world, is you get so caught up in doing something to create a product, and you're always working on, well, how do I make the product better? How do I get the packaging done? How do I get marketing? All these kind of things. And what happens is you get very sidetracked and very singular focused on the product itself. Later on, you're going to have to talk to investors. You're going to have to talk to a bank maybe to get a loan. You're going to have to talk to strategic partners. You may look for a sales rep firm that wants to do business with you. You may look for a marketing firm that wants to do business with you. As you go through it, this really creates clarity and direction around your company. So what are you trying to accomplish? Is it just about creating this pen, or is it about creating a brand? Is it about creating a company? Is it about creating a culture, an ecosystem? A business plan is kind of like your sales sheet. I see people spend a lot of time on sales sheets. I've seen people spend a lot of time on presentations to buyers. You should spend just as much time, if not more, on a business plan. This becomes your sales sheet when you're talking to investors. You're not going to use it necessarily with a retailer, but it is your one-stop shop that if someone says, hey, I think what you're doing is great. Can you tell me more? Wow, here's this document that really pinpoints what you're trying to accomplish and why you're trying to accomplish, and most importantly, how you're going to accomplish it. I've talked to people that have 10, $20 million businesses, and I've said, hey, can I see your business plan? Like, we don't have one. And boy, I've seen some of them hit some brick walls too when they're trying to get investors and then they're scrambling around trying to develop this. To me, it is something at the beginning, middle, end, wherever you are on your journey, spend some time understanding what you want from the future and make sure that you're putting those into action, into a business plan. It helps with operations. It helps with alignment, whether it's internal or external. It helps with banking. It helps with finance. It's one of those documents that you can always lean on when you need it to help get things done. Highly recommend get started on a business plan. This is one of those things. Use ChatGPT, go out and find templates. This is something you can do on your own. Just make sure it's professional and has all the benefits for it. Go out to get ready for retail. We'll put some templates out there for a business plan for you to take a look at. Not something you need to spend a lot of money on. This is something that really is to help you as your own personal guidebook. So get a business plan put together. And next, we're going to talk about strategic goals, which also should be part of your business plan. But strategic goals are defined as your business short-term and long-term direction across key areas such as sales, marketing, product development, operations, and finance. These, like I said, are a roadmap for growth. They help you prioritize your decisions. They help you measure your progress. They also help align your team internally and externally on what matters most. Why does it matter? This is your roadmap for growth. So this is one of those things that if you were to ask me where entrepreneurs fall short of what large corporations do, this is it. There's too many people that are like, I just want to get into retail. I want to have a $100 million company. I want is not a strategic plan. Is not a strategic goal. Strategic goals are saying, I would like to get into retailer X by this date, or I want to get into their line review, things that you can track and that you can measure. Revenue growth. I did $100 million last year. I want to do $105 million. And here are the goals inside of it that I'm going to accomplish that by. Planning is one of those things that a lot of entrepreneurs overlook. And that's where those big companies spend the majority of their time. When I worked for Fortune 500 companies, we spent way more time planning than anything else. We planned months ahead of time. We would plan during the month. Once the month would happen, we would plan what's going to happen for next month. Planning is one of those things that if you don't have a target, if you don't have a goal, you will just wander around. You won't know what success looks like. And part of that is being able to track to it. If you set a goal that is trackable, like I want to grow 5%, I want to grow from 100 million to 105 million, you can track that growth. Once you start tracking goals, you'll actually be able to see where your deficiencies are. And that's the key. If you're just wandering around and things are constantly happening around you, you've got no goals, how do you react to it? How do you proactively go after something? So inside of your business plan, make sure that you have strategic goals. It will also help you with your investors. It'll help you with your operational readiness. So think about an investor. They want to know what your goals are. They want to know how you're going to achieve those goals. And then they want to see you track against those goals. If I was investing in something, someone said, hey, we're just going to grow and we got a really cool item, probably not going to be willing to part with my money to get there. So make sure that inside of your business plan, you have strategic goals. Another thing too, if you have those strategic goals, put them on your wall, put them in your office, put them in your garage, put them wherever you can see them. Whenever you are making a decision, if it's not supporting a strategic goal, stop wasting time, right? There are certain things that have to get done every day, but these strategic goals help narrow down the focus of work where you're just churning through work to do work, or you're just hustling to hustle, to where you're really pinpointing exactly what you need to be working on. So having strategic goals, uberly important. Let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, legal counsel. Legal counsel refers to having a qualified attorney or legal team who can review, draft, and negotiate your business agreements, especially those related to retail contracts, supplier terms, intellectual property, and regulatory compliance. Now, this is one of those areas that I know makes everyone a little bit uncomfortable. How much legal counsel do I need? What should I be going after? Do I need to hire someone? Everyone's got a relative or a friend of a friend who's an attorney that will help look at stuff. And all of those things are great, right? Like I said, there are online services you can use for a lot of this. I'm going to at least tell you what I think about legal counsel. The more you grow, the more you need. The very first thing is, from a contract perspective, if you're not an attorney and you've ever read a really detailed contract, it can be painful. And understanding all of the jargon and everything inside of that, are there people that can do it? Absolutely. Now, one thing to keep in mind, a lot of the contracts that you're going to face or that you're going to sign, like a vendor agreement with a large retailer, you're going to want to understand what is in that, because it's really important that you get it. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you don't understand their markdown policy. You don't understand their terms. So an attorney can help you through that. Doesn't mean that you're going to negotiate with a Walmart or a Costco or a Lowe's on what their vendor agreement is. Probably not. Some of them are going to be pretty cut and dry. You will, however, get into positions later on where you might use a sales firm to represent yourself. Those contracts are negotiable. Those contracts are very, very important. You want to make sure that every single detail that is in there is accurate, correct, and is representing both of the wants of both you and whoever you're signing that contract with. That's where lawyers come into play in a very big way, right? They come with compliance and risk mitigation. If you have a good sales firm that is representing you at a retailer, they should understand the policies and practices of that retailer. So they're going to be able to help you to a certain degree. But remember, myself included, I'm not an attorney. I can only give you a perspective. And I'll say that right now. I'm not an attorney even here. So part of this is just what I've seen over the years. Once you start to grow and there's a certain time period, and you're going to know when you hit a major retailer and you're thinking, oh, great, I've got a lot more contracts, a lot more at risk. To me, that is that moment in time where you might want to consider getting legal counsel, like a representative. You can go find one, a local one. There are national ones. Most of them charge by the hour, depending on what you're asking for. My old attorney also was my CPA. So there's a bunch of different things to look at and what your needs and your wants are. And as usual, always look at your budget, make sure that it's affordable and inside of that. But I would always highly recommend, when you bridge the gap of a certain amount, and we can have that conversation later as we dig into matters, but this is just top line. When you get to a certain point where your risk becomes large, you're definitely going to want to consider getting legal counsel just for your own protection. So up next, we have financial tracking. Financial tracking is the process of monitoring your revenue, expenses, and profitability through an organized system, typically accounting software or a financial dashboard. So this is one of those things that really comes down to a comfort level and where you are inside of your journey and the tools and the teams that you have around you. Now, I have seen it and I personally do it. I keep track of all my finances on Excel. And it's because I've been doing it for years and I have a really good system and I've managed large businesses and small. It's just how I feel comfortable. But I also have a CPA that I work with on a monthly basis and an annual basis to make sure that everything is doing and done properly. There are tons of tools that you can use. I'm not saying you need to go all the way to having a CPA or having your own accountant, but you will get into tracking as one of your primary focuses as a business owner. The larger it grows, the more moving pieces. Most of the CEOs that I know that own their own companies spend a lot of time tracking finances, whether it's cash flow, whether it's, marketing promo dollars, where and when moving pieces are going around. So financial tracking for cost of goods, you might use a certain ingredient in your product and all of a sudden that ingredient has gone up. That close, meticulous, watchful eye on finances gets people into trouble a lot of times. Using software or using a company is a great way to steer clear of that, making sure that good data in is good data out, right? So this gives you the clarity and control and the comfort to know that I know where every dollar is being spent. I know where it's going. I know where it's coming from. It also helps because investors, not so much retailers, but investors will ask, hey, how do you track your business? How do you do? So now we've set this business plan and now we have these really cool goals and they're 100% bought in. Well, how are you tracking it? Right. And if it's like, well, I've got a piece of paper on my desk and I keep track of everything on a piece of paper. That's probably not going to give the confidence to your investor that, oh yeah, everything's under control. Right. The other thing that it does too is it gives you a tracking system if you potentially sell your company or do something where you want another investor or you have to separate and move things. It creates a history over time that you can go back and draw relationships or trends or base levels that you understand exactly where things are at any given time. And you could go look back at history. So financial tracking is really important. I know that you might think you've got it, but my recommendation is to go talk to someone, show them what you're doing, and find out if you really got it or you don't got it. So financial tracking. Up next is working capital. Working capital is the cash you have on hand to fund inventory production, marketing, operations, and order fulfillment, especially before receiving payment from a retailer. We're going to talk a little bit about cash flow and capital just in general, because this is one of the things that I think catches people up from the get-go. I have heard with my own ears 1,000 times, once I get a PO, I'll be able to afford it. Because it's one of those conversations that you're going to have with investors, you're going to have with everybody up front, is you have a $100,000 company, which is doing great and it's got its revenue and you're tracking everything beautiful. And now you want to get into Walmart. Let's say we're going to go and get into Home Depot. And Home Depot is going to place an order for $1 million. Now, you have to be able to pay for that inventory to have it built, to have it shipped. Then Home Depot is going to take ownership of it. And then somewhere later on down the road, they're going to pay you. That is a very long time to be able to float cash. The last thing you want to do is wait for a PO to have this figured out. And there's a lot of different ways to create funding or create a pool of money to pull from. But the last time that you want to try and do that is after you've already talked to a buyer, the buyer's committed, everything's great. They're like, let's get ready to roll. And then you go look for money. That is going to be a problem 9 times out of 10, unless you know some really wealthy people, which is great. What you want to do is understand what working capital you have and your future investment capital before you ever talk to a retailer. And a lot of people think that this will come from one source. If you have an uberly rich relative or someone you know that can throw $1 million your way, great, you can skip over this. If you don't, there's a lot of ways of building this up beforehand that you can look at. Your manufacturer sometimes will give you some timing or you pay for a certain percentage up front. You can look for friends and families, right? You can look for an angel investor or someone outside of your network that you may possibly know and go search for money. Your bank, most of the people that I use have a certain part of their financing that they've always done with their bank because they've created a history and they know where that is. There also is PO financing on the back end. There's a lot of different ways. Most people don't use one way. Most people will use multiple ways of making sure that they're like, I need $1 million. I can get a loan from my bank for $250,000. My aunt Barb will give me $200,000. If I PO finance, I can push this off. If I a little bit of A, a little bit of B, and all of a sudden you've got a plan. But once again, you're planning before you ever sit down with a buyer so that you know that you have the confidence that if they turn around and say, here's a PO for $1 million, you go, great, I've got it. You're able to run operations and everything smoothly. So please start talking about finance way before you're talking to a buyer. This concept that once I've got a PO, everyone's going to run and hand me money is just not reality. So start now, build out options for yourself, option A, option B, option C, and then also understand that you might need multiple options. And a lot of this will come down to how you launch the product too. Are you testing? Are you doing nationwide? Are you going into a local retailer that's got 10 stores? Are you going into a national chain that's got 3,000 stores, right? This is part of that business plan we talked about, tracking that we're talking about, and making sure that you understand all of these specific steps. So working capital is that fund that you can get right now that's sitting there handy, okay? And you're most likely, if you get into a retailer, you're gonna have to pre-fund a marketing program. All of that cash is needed. Understanding where it's coming from and where it's going should be in your business plan, should be tracking it correctly, is super important, right? So capital in general, working capital as well. Let's talk Dun and Bradstreet. This is probably, so there are probably topics in here that you don't want to hear about. Here's one that I struggle talking about. So a Duns number is a unique 9-digit identifier issued by Dun & Bradstreet that tracks your business credit history and financial reliability. Now, do you need this? 100%. Most retailers in their retail agreement, you have to put your DUNS number. Now, most people don't say, most retailers will not say what it's for or what level they need to be at to achieve acceptance. I've heard things passed around at the end of the day, but this is one of those things that I would love nothing more than to have someone from Dun and Bradstreet sit with us and do an interview and explain it, okay? The one thing that you do need to know, a couple things that you do need to know. Number one is it's basically a credit score system for companies. Number two, you have to do it. You have to have a DUNS number for most retailers to fill out their vendor agreement. It's just part of it. I can't tell you what the good score does or a bad score does or anything, because I know people that have horrible scores that are in major retailers. I know people that have had good scores that have gotten kicked out for other reasons. It's just one of those things to make sure you have a DUNS number. Don't wait until, just get the number. You can get it right now as long as you have already legally set up your company. Here's the one thing. It is a place to verify that you're a company and verify your credit score, but you have to give them the information. They're not going out and finding it. So if you've set up a company and you've never submitted anything to Dun & Bradstreet and you've not had any reason for it, it will just show that you're a business and that you have a horrible score because you don't have any credit or you don't have anything on it. And I've seen that not hurt people. The one thing that I would love to talk to a Dun & Bradstreet person personally about is I have had clients of mine go to Dun & Bradstreet, get their number. Dun & Bradstreet will say, hey, this is a horrible number. You really have to bring this up. And then they say, well, how do I do it? And Dun & Bradstreet, you can pay them to low credit scores, but they will make everything very public. People will be able to see stuff, which I would not personally want to do. But what will end up happening is I've been told it's not a pay for play. So I will say that I've been told a million times that Dun & Bradstreet numbers are not pay for play. But I have watched with my own eyes someone sign up and their credit or their Dun & Bradstreet score goes up before anything happened. So I would love it if someone, at least Dun & Bradstreet, this is my call to you, or anybody who knows anyone at Dun & Bradstreet. I would love to learn more. I would actually love to have an interview and put that out on our free resources. One, so that I can understand it better, so that I can communicate to you guys better. But that's what I know. You need a Dun & Bradstreet number. You need a Dunn's number. You absolutely have to have one. As far as past that, I've seen people with low scores, high scores get vendor agreements. So I'm at a loss on this one, but I would love to learn more. So anybody out there who can help me, then we can help the entire group. Let's get this figured out. Dun & Bradstreet. Let's talk liability insurance. Product liability insurance protects your business from claims related to injury, damage, or harm caused by your product. This coverage can include legal defense, settlements, and judgments if your product is ever alleged to be defective or dangerous. Once again, this is one of those things that you need. Each retailer, we're going to talk about this. Each retailer has different needs and requirements, right? They have different initial markups. They have different compliance, probably from a Dun & Bradstreet. They have different levels of insurance that you need. I can tell you, if you're going to do business at Walmart, you need $2 million of product liability insurance. Now, why does it matter? It's protection. It's risk and financial protection that keeps you from going bankrupt the time someone does something with your product and it causes harm, and all of a sudden there's an issue. The biggest one is retailer requirements. They need it for scalability. That is another purpose that we use liability insurance for. But let's talk a little bit about how to get it and when you might need it. This is another thing that you should already have talked to someone who you're going to get coverage from prior to meeting with a buyer, but you don't have to sign up until you're actually in the retailer that you need. So if I sit down with a buyer, and let's say I'm sitting down with Walmart, I've already talked to someone. I already know who I'm going to get my insurance from. I know how much it's going to cost. I know when I could start it. So when Walmart says, all right, do you have liability insurance? You go, yes. You call up your insurance person, say, all right, make it active. And now you're paying for it. You don't need to set it up now if you're not compliant with a retailer, because you need to be. I would highly recommend that you have liability insurance on your product the day you start selling it. Just because of the protection around it. So the level, I think, is what's going to differ based on a retailer, right? If you're on Amazon, if you're selling from your home, if you're selling, a pen versus a prosthetic arm that could do damage or something different, or a car. So you need to also know inside of that category, there might be different requirements. The liability insurance is one of those things that you will need. Make sure you understand your category, the requirements from the retailer. Like I said, set it up to the level that you're operating, and then set it up for the level that you will need to be operating at. Make sure that there's a clear path to that, but you don't need to start it until you're actually doing the product, shipping the product inside that specific area. So liability insurance, something you need. I would talk to my legal counsel, make sure that I'm covered correctly. Once again, you see all these things are going to be kind of tied together. And when you're a business owner, having all of that kind of weight put on you can be a lot. So you want to make sure that you have the right teams around you, the right insurance company. And once again, you're going to get into contracts, you're going to get into policies. Do you have the comfort of doing that? Should you have legal counsel representing you that's making sure that they're reviewing that and saying, okay, here's a prime example. Retailer A says that I need these requirements, and here is the contract from my insurance company. Do they meet each other? If you can answer that yourself, more power to you. I can't. That is where I use my legal team to say, okay, here are the requirements. Here's what I'm signing up. Am I good? Am I covered? And that way I want that representation. I want that expertise level to be able to say, yep, you are correct. But you will need liability insurance to get into retail. Cost of goods sold, or COGS. Now, there are some topics that we're going to talk about that could go in all four. It's much like the item level P&L. For those of you who watched the product one, cost of goods sold could go in anywhere because it's just uberly important. We decided to put it here just because No good reason. It's where we decide to, we're putting it together so we get to do stuff like that. So cost of goods sold, or you'll hear the term COGS. It represents the total direct cost involvement in producing your product. Typically, it includes raw materials, manufacturing, labor, packaging, assembly, and inbound shipping, right? It is crucial that you understand your COGS. Once again, I've said it, this is my way of sneaking this in there. If you're not running an item level P&L, you are doomed to hit some walls that you really don't want to. This COGS, understanding each individual component and the cost, is going to allow you to operate in a way that makes you profitable and sustainable and scalable. Okay, why does it matter? The first is profitability. So if you think about COGS as every ingredient, every assembly cost, every shipping cost, every time something moves and you're aware of it because you've got a really good financial tracking system, you're able to say, okay, this moved. What do I do now that I sell orange juice and the orange juice market just doubled? Right? Do I need to take a price increase? Do I need to cut my marketing? Do I have to let people go? Like, there are very tough decisions that have to be made every day around understanding each of those individual components, right? If gas goes up and orange juice or oranges go down and your labor costs got cut and things, you're watching all of these things move and flow even below the item level P&L, but this is inside of your item level P&L. It helps you make really good decisions because we go back to that conversation of, I'm selling my product to a retailer for $5, they're selling for $10, right? So that's their margin. So somewhere between that 0 and 5, I've got to make money, and my cost of goods are $3. Well, if my shipping goes up 5 cents and my raw materials go up 10 cents and my labor went up 13 cents, all of a sudden those change how you run your business, right? You have to figure out, where am I pushing and moving levers? If you're not looking at your cost of goods, you're going to have issues and problems. Every time something changes, you want to make sure that's tracked, it's accounted for, and that you have a plan to maneuver around that, right? Maybe you could pull some money from marketing. Maybe you've got a surplus. Maybe the orange market just dropped and all of a sudden, like, man, it just drops. Well, if I'm in orange juice, chances are if everything dropped, I might see my competition drop. So do I react to that? Do I do it first? Do I do a price increase? Now we're going to get into the conversation of administration where all these things are going to take place. I've put together my business plan. I'm tracking everything financially. All of a sudden, my orange cost goes up because oranges have gone up. Well, now I have a contract with the retail, and that contract states that I can't do a price increase for at least 90 days upon notification. Well, now I need my attorney to make sure that that is correct. I'm in line. I'm giving them the proper paperwork to do a price increase. And now I have to figure out how to mitigate that loss for another 90 days before I can activate it. There's a lot of things that go into this, and those individual pieces is what matters, right? And so COGS, at item level P&L, if you're not looking at that thing religiously a lot, daily might be a lot, but for most people I know, it's not. People will look at their financial tracking, they will look at their P&L, they will look at their costs, they're looking at all this constantly. That's part of being a business owner. That management of that is just as important, if not more important, than having all the fun time managing the product and social media and all the stuff that you want to do, right? So this is one of the things underneath. And I know administration is not the fun stuff to talk about, but these are the things that matter when people talk about, like, oh, retailer A bankrupted me. I've never seen it, but I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, of small business owners, struggle with some of these core competencies and fail. And that's not fun. That's not a good place to be in. And part of it is understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at. So if you don't have the capability to read contracts, you might need help with an attorney. If you're not good at tracking finances, you might need some sort of database or something to keep track of that, right? Cost of goods is one of those things that you're going to get a lot of different pieces from a lot of different players, from your manufacturing to your shipping, and they're going to all come together. So you got to be comfortable in managing an organization, organizing a lot of things coming together and being able to report and track them. But COGS is uberly important, super important to make sure that you're running your business efficiently. Last but not least, we have customer service and returns management. Customer service is your support system for handling product inquiries, complaints, returns, refunds, and feedback. Whether it's consumers reaching out post-purchase or retailers managing returns, a strong customer service infrastructure is key to maintaining brand trust and integrity. So this is one of those things that shouldn't need a lot of conversation, but it really does. A lot of people try to cut corners when it comes to customer service, and we have all had, probably in the last 5 years, a time that we had to deal with customer service that we left very unsatisfied. Your customer service is usually the face of your customer once something goes wrong. And how that experience is handled can make or break any good brand, bad brand, or everything in between. That customer service experience is what's going to be conveyed. So if someone calls and they have a really bad experience, guess what the next thing they're going to do is they're going to call the retailer and then they're going to complain to them. So that is going to end up festering and not helping you create your brand's reputation that you want. So make sure that your customer service team, whatever it may be, is representing your brand to the best of its ability. The second thing that a good return policy customer service will do is it will see problems come before anyone else does. So if your product is put in a box and it is shipped and is put on a shelf, if that product is defective, no one's really going to know about it until someone at the end, hopefully QA, quality assurance, has caught it, but let's just say it got through. Once that customer brings that product home and they call and say, hey, something is wrong, the way that you've put together your team and the way that you put together your process of what happens is vitally important. If they're just like, well, sorry, something went wrong, we'll send you a refund. Boy, that's okay, I guess. But if they have a conversation, what's wrong? We can help. We'll send you another product. And then they take that information and they relay it back to the manufacturer or someone. You can cut off a lot of issues that may have happened. It could be a nationwide problem that's about ready to explode. It could just be a small batch size. But if you can isolate some of those and create a plan, that's where it really helps you, because you'll be able to take that plan back to your buyer and your retailer, and they'd much rather hear it from you than hear it from the business. Because if they hear it from a customer, their chances are they're going to turn around and be like, you need to do something about it. We're going to do a product withdrawal. We're going to do something drastic. Whereas if you come with a plan, you say, here's our plan. We identified this. It came from this batch. We're going to remove the product from this DC. We're going to, expedite a shipment to make sure that we're covering costs. We're going to be down for 1 week, but whatever it is, all of a sudden you've taken control of that. That actually will build more confidence with your retailer. So one is the face of the company. And two, it helps identify problems that may be happening with your product sooner than later. And it's the quickness to which you respond to that is vitally important. We appreciate the time. We're all done with pillar number 2, administration. I know it's not the fun stuff, but hopefully you found a lot of good, useful things inside of this to take with you. As usual, subscribe, like, hit buttons, click things. Most of all, go out to getreadyforretail.com, check out our free resources, see if there's things out there. And as usual, we want to know what you want to hear next. So subscribe to our newsletter, interact with us. That's how we get better. Hopefully, we're going to start getting to some more fun stuff. Up next is going to be pillar 3, and that's all about operations. So from manufacturing to supply chain. Thank you.